Hey everybody, so I just want to make a video surrounding a particular topic in the HEX community and the Pulse Chain community that I've wanted to make a video about for a while, but I felt like it wasn't necessary to because I've had so many people on my channel convey their opinions on this topic, but I've never really conveyed my opinions on this topic. So I want to make a video surrounding EHEX and PHEX and whether both can survive and thrive, or does it have to be one or the other? And again, I want to quote this video in the beginning with my favorite quote from Wolf of Wall Street. And it's nobody knows whether the stock is going to go up, down, or sideways, least of all stockbrokers. This is all speculative. This is just my opinion. I do not know if this is going to happen or not. I'm not a financial advisor. I just wanted to get that out of the way, and I want to just give you guys my opinion. So, EHEX. Let's talk about EHEX first. Now, as you guys know, the EHEX chart is not pretty right now at all. It has not been under ascent, EHEX, for, to my knowledge, over 2 years. And right now, being 0.007685, it's not a pretty chart. And the volume is not pretty either. There is about $900,000 on DEXs and $365,000 in volume on centralized exchanges. And we look at the chart, well, it doesn't look very good. It doesn't, to be honest. It doesn't. Let's just be honest with each other. It doesn't. So, why does this matter? I believe that there has been this running discussion that just because PHEX succeeds means EHEX has to follow it, or vice versa. And I don't necessarily know if that's the case. And the reason why is because people can choose one or the other, and also there are different pieces of efficiencies that are in Pulse Chain right now that are not in Ethereum. That doesn't mean Ethereum won't have them in the future, which is the case for EHEX. So right now, Pulse Chain is more efficient. Pulse Chain is more scalable. Pulse Chain has 10-second block times. Pulse Chain is cheaper, substantially cheaper than Ethereum. So this begs the question, why would we ever look at Ethereum again? Well, here's the reason. Many of you may not be aware of this, but Layer 2s, also known as rollups, maybe you have heard of ZK rollups, which are basically Layer 2s that scale Layer 1s, Ethereum being the example here. So ZK rollups will soon lower fees by 40 to 100x. Now, this is just one component of Ethereum scalability. There's also something called blockchain sharding. So sharding is supposed to happen in late 2023. Do I think it's going to happen in late 2023? Probably not. But what blockchain sharding is basically when a blockchain is partitioned into multiple small parts. It breaks up a blockchain network into smaller, manageable pieces called shards, where a specific node or validator will be able to will have the ability to only have to validate transactions or blocks in a particular shard. So it basically breaks up the blockchain and makes it more efficient to validate blocks. So, with that being said, this breaking up of blockchain networks into multiple shards allows for parallel processing, improved latency, and increased scalability. The computational burden on the network is reduced, and more transactions can be processed in a given period of time. So in Ethereum's case, sharding will also help address one of its biggest pain points, the high gas fees. Gas refers to the fee required for a transaction to be processed on the network. Sharding would result in less competition for resources on the network, thereby reducing the overall gas fees. So currently, we all know that Ethereum is very slow. It's able to process anywhere between, I believe, it says 13 here, but I've seen 27 since the merge. So I'm just going to say anywhere between 13 and 27 TPS. With sharding, the vision is that Ethereum's throughput can reach up to 100,000 TPS. You guys got to put a zero here, guys. That's not how you write 100,000. The actual figure may vary until sharding has been fully implemented on the network. So, It's basically nodes referred to the computers on a blockchain network that store and propagate transactional data, essentially keeping the network running. So, blockchain sharding allows for basically a blockchain to be more scalable, more efficient, and with cheaper fees. Why does this matter for EHEX? Well, Ethereum, whether we like it or not, has almost 20% of the entire market cap of the crypto space. I am not one to believe that any layer 1 blockchain is an Ethereum killer. I believe that was nonsense ever since I heard about it in 2017. I don't believe Ethereum is going anywhere. I believe Ethereum will be a number 2 blockchain for quite some time, next to Bitcoin, may even surpass Bitcoin, I don't know. But I don't believe Ethereum is going anywhere. And why is that important? Because once blockchain sharding is implemented and ZK rollups are implemented on Ethereum, it basically nullifies the sales pitch of many layer 1s that have conveyed that their main proposition is to be more efficient and more scalable than Ethereum. So, if Richard Hart's community, the HEX and Pulse community, continues into the future, which I think it will, and the Richard Hart community sees EHEX on Ethereum with ZK rollups and Ethereum blockchain sharding, we will probably see many people flock back to Ethereum from other pre-existing layer 1s that have been launched after Ethereum with a sales pitch that Ethereum is slow, easily congested, and very, very expensive. That's my case for EHEX. Now, do I believe that EHEX and PHEX have to perform in tandem with one another? No, I actually don't. I think that there will be times that PHEX does fantastically. I think that there are times that EHEX can do well while PHEX doesn't move. I think that there are times where PHEX can do well where EHEX does not. We can kind of see that right now where EHEX on Ethereum has not moved anywhere besides basically the downside, and PHEX is steadily rising in value. It's actually doing better than Pulse Chain on Pulse Chain. So that's my argument for EHEX, that in the future when Ethereum becomes more scalable, I believe that people from other pre-existing layer 1s that exist, including Pulse Chain, will come back to Ethereum, especially if EHEX continues to stay at this price. Especially then. And we also need to take into account that big fish are not going to care about a $50 to $100 gas fee to end a stake or to sell, as opposed to a $1 to $2 fee if the coin, or the token performs better on a more expensive chain. That's the case for a lot of people who have a decent amount of money in this space. They don't care about gas fees. And I know many people do, like myself, but in the future when Ethereum is more scalable, people more than likely, that will not be a sales pitch anymore for many layer 1s. So, with that being said, I also want to make it clear that if you made substantial amount of money on a token, on Ethereum, let's say, and the gas price is exorbitant, maybe $70 to $150, maybe $200, $300, even $400, $500, if you made a decent amount of money on it, it's almost like paying tax. It sucks, but you still made a substantial amount of money on that chain. So, that is my argument for EHEX. It's enticing for big players because it's more of an established chain, and EHEX is older, and it was the foundation of the Richard Hart community, and ZK rollups and blockchain sharding will cause a lower a lower, lower gas fees, and will cause and create a model for Ethereum where the transaction speed is much faster. For now, let's look at Pulse Chain, for example. Right now, HEX on Pulse Chain is doing very well. Its liquidity is 44 million. It is the, let's just click this. It is the 6th most traded coin on, it has the 6th most transactions on the Pulse Chain network. When I made my last video about 3 days ago, it was number 10. So now it's creeping up. And we're seeing PulseX being the first, with transactions, Pepe, 555 Club, Rat Pulse Die, HEX. So when we look at HEX right now, here are the value propositions for PHEX. The price right now is outperforming Pulse. It has $44 million worth of liquidity. HEX right now has a chart that does not look very pretty when you're trying to onboard somebody. PHEX does have a decent chart. So we go all the way back here, which really wasn't that long ago. So let's go to the 1 month. Can we do that? I don't really normally use Dex Screen. Let's go to the 3 month. So we see this, and it's a relatively young chart. So we have this. It's been around for about a month and a half, and the chart does not look that bad. It doesn't look terrible. So it went down from when it launched 0.005 up to about 3.5 cents, wicked up to about 4.5 cents, and now it's about 1.6 cents and has been rising steadily over the last couple of days, about a week and a half. So the value proposition here for PHEX is that it's on a brand new layer 1. A brand new layer 1s with established communities and established prospects with a strong leader, a strong community, a pre-existing community tend to have an enticing prospect for new investors. And you're seeing that with a lot of PRC20s where people are speculating on them, Pepe being one of them. As you can see, Pepe is the second traded coin on PulseX right now with the transactions we see. Not the most traded, I'm sorry, the most transactions. So, why do I say this? Because HEX is the new shiny HEX on Pulse Chain as opposed to EHEX, which is the older HEX. Now I want to go to Richard Hart's tweets, and I want to make sense of them. And I know a lot of people take things out of context with Richard, and I'm going to try to look at things as concrete as I can and not be someone who takes things out of context for my own cognitive bias. So, the first thing here is exactly what I'm very happy to hear, is that Richard Hart has never conveyed that Pulse Chain is supposed to be an Ethereum killer. I think most chains that convey that they are the ones that do not end up doing well, or they end up creating unnecessary animosity for no reason. This is exactly why I like Pulse Chain, because it increases Ethereum's value by lowering and sharing its load. I think that's very, 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 very important. It enriches Ethereum users. So Pulse Chain brings the ETH system state in ERC20s. This rewards holders and founders of Ethereum-based projects. It enriches ERC20 and NFTs users, lower Pulse Chain fees, and serves more users. So, this prospect here is exactly why I don't think that Richard has abandoned EHEX by any means, because this is exactly what he's been conveying for years, that it's supposed to enhance Ethereum's value. It's supposed to increase its value. And in tandem, I would presume that since HEX was launched on Ethereum, that HEX is on Ethereum, my thought is that increasing Ethereum's value would, in essence, give more of a prospect to also continuously look and observe EHEX as Ethereum's load is lowered, which means its gas fees are lowered, which means that it could possibly be more efficient. And this is not even considering ZK rollups and sharding when they come out. Also, Hex on Pulse Chain has been quietly outperforming Pulse. Drama-free. Yes, this is true. So we've seen Richard Hart been very, very adamant about promoting Hex on Pulse Chain. And why wouldn't he? I mean, Hex is his brainchild, and it's now his brainchild on Pulse Chain. It makes perfect sense on why he would do it. Then you have him talking about Pulse Chain is extremely affordable. 3 cents to swap and 1/5 of a penny to send. Then we have promoting Pulse, PulseX, and Hex is awesome. Promoting other PRC20s is much less awesome. So here, it's evident by him saying promoting other PRC20s that he is specifically focused on highlighting Pulse, Hex, and PulseX, and Hex specifically on Pulse Chain. So this tweet, I think, is very much focused on Pulse Chain Hex, on PHEX. So, it's obvious that Richard in recent tweets has been focused on PHEX. Obviously. The most important thing for a coin's price is actually buying it and not selling it. Fees are a much smaller component. I agree. For instance, Ethereum has only gone down in supply 0.3% in a year from its fee burning. Better thank going up in supply around 2% as Bitcoin has. If you like burning, Pulse Chain and PulseX burn far more. So, buying it and not selling it. You have PulseX here. This is Gold Pulse, which I think is a fantastic website. Pulse Chain, PulseX, Incentive Token, HEX, which also includes EHEX as well in that respect. So, why is this important? Because he's talking about buying it and not selling it. And the coins that are shown here are Pulse Chain, PulseX, Incentive, HEX, and EHEX. Even though it says right here, including EHEX. So it's not like he's leaving out EHEX. And it goes back to this, increasing Ethereum's value. Ethereum fees will be lowered by sharing its load. And it's important to reference that Richard hasn't come out and said that he does not support Ethereum HEX. He's been adamant about supporting PHEX, and individually speaking, I think that PHEX is the new shiny hex, and given the fact that Pulse Chain is his layer 1, I tend to find more prospect over the next year or so in PHEX personally. However, when blockchain sharding and ZK rollups come out on Ethereum, and the sales pitch for basically every layer 1 in cryptocurrency outside of Ethereum's sales pitch was that they were more efficient and cheaper than Ethereum, where that may no longer be the case, and Ethereum ends up doing 100,000 TPS or something along those lines, and is exorbitantly cheaper where it can compete with new layer 1s, well, there's more of a value proposition for EHEX as well then. So, in conclusion, do I think just because PHEX does well, does that mean EHEX has to do well? No. Do I think that just because EHEX does well, does PHEX have to do well at the same time? No. Do I think that these two tokens could do better at different time frames depending on the established maybe TVL on Pulse Chain as opposed to Ethereum, or the scalability updates on Ethereum as opposed to other layer 1s with blockchain sharding and ZK rollups? Yeah, I think that could change a lot for HEX on Ethereum. So, although right now HEX on Ethereum does not look good, do I think that with Ethereum's blockchain sharding and ZK rollups and Richard Hart, the HEX and Pulse Chain community succeeding and surviving as a result of Pulse Chain HEX and PulseX, do I think that the community is just going to forget EHEX? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. I hope it doesn't, because it basically, in my opinion, throws out the window the entire foundation of this community. I really hope that doesn't happen. However, again, I'm not trying to make price picks or anything like that. That's not what I do. But I do believe that just because one token does better on one chain does not mean that the other token cannot do well at a different time frame, and vice versa. So I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on EHEX versus PHEX. I'll leave the two links about blockchain sharding in the description, because I am curious to hear your guys' thoughts about EHEX versus PHEX, what you guys think, what you guys doing, and what your plan is, and what you guys think the future of PHEX and EHEX will be. Again, this is all speculative, so I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts.